everybody, and welcome to another episode of Cinema Heroes. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm Jay Stu.
And today we're talking about Kick-Ass, released in 2010, directed by Matthew Vaughn, written by Jane Goldman and Matthew Vaughn from a comic book by Mark Miller and John S. Romita Jr., which is weird. I don't think I've ever seen his name other than in the credits for this movie as John S. Romita Jr. It's just usually John Romita Jr. Anyway, starring Aaron Johnson, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, Mark Strong, Chloe Grace Moretz, and Nicolas Cage. I'm actually surprised this came out in 2010. I thought it was earlier than that, especially since in the movie they talk about MySpace.
Yeah.
That is amazing how... I guess I was using MySpace in 2010. I thought I was done with it by then, but I don't know. It's just the fact that he was talking about MySpace in the movie made me think this movie is older than I realized. I thought it was like maybe 2007 or 2008 or something. But
yeah, by the time this movie came out, MySpace was on its last leg.
Yeah, it had to have been, right? Yeah. But I saw this in the theater. I was pretty excited about it. It just looked like a fun movie, and Nicolas Cage as essentially Batman I was all for. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it's a very R-rated superhero film, I guess. But I think it's actually they do a pretty good job with it. What did you see it in the theater?
Yes, I did see it in the theater. I was working at the movie theater when this came out. So yeah, I did see it in the theater. I went in totally blind. I didn't know anything about the character or the comic book. And I found it to be pretty good. I really thought it was like really good when it first came out. But as years have gone on, I like it a little bit less.
Yeah.
But it's still good. I just think that I don't know, my sense of humor has changed over the years.
Sure. Yeah.
Or I wouldn't say changed, but kind of evolved. So
things
that I found funny when I was 20, I don't find quite as funny when I'm 32. So
sure. I can understand that. I will be curious to know like which comedic moments don't resonate with you anymore. But yeah, I didn't know anything going into it either. I did read the comic, but I think it was after I saw the movie. I think I liked the movie enough that I went out and bought the graphic novel and read it. And I actually, this might be blasphemous to say, I don't know, but I actually think I like the movie more than the comic. I think there was a couple things in the comic that I didn't really like.
Yeah.
I remember there was a big moment with Big Daddy that I really didn't like in the comic and thought I was really glad they cut it out of the movie.
What moment was that?
So I think it's near his, spoiler alert, his death scene. I think and it's been, I probably haven't read the comic in 12 years. I probably read it in 2010 when the movie came out, and I have not read it since. It's probably sitting in one of these comic book boxes right here. But I believe they are I don't know if it's him in Kick-Ass or not, but they're interrogating him. And in the movie, they gave him this backstory where Frank D'Amico, played by Mark Strong, gets him sent to jail. And I can't remember if he's the cause of his wife's death, but there's this revenge kind of story.
Mm-hmm.
In the comic book, I think that's not what it is. It's like they kind of built it up that way, but then you find out that Nicolas Cage's character, Big Daddy, I forget his actual name, is actually just a comic book collector and just wanted to be, he's basically like what Kick-Ass was. He just wanted to be a superhero.
Huh.
And like he's got like a briefcase that he carries around or something, and it's just full of comic books that he doesn't like want to lose.
So he has no motive.
I think he's. So I remember being really kind of disappointed with that. And granted, like I said, it could be wrong. It's been a while since I read the comic, but I do remember being like, what? When I read it. So I think the movie version of Big Daddy makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. Like I said, I didn't read the comic, so I had nothing to base it off of beforehand, and I kind of read a little bit about the comic afterwards, but I was basically just skimming Wikipedia because I was mildly interested in what it was based on. But yeah, like I said, I thought it was really good when it first came out. I still think it's good, but not quite as good.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and get into that. What are the parts that don't resonate with you anymore? Like, what are some of the stuff that makes you kind of think, this movie's not as great as I remember?
just a lot of the high school stuff I didn't I used to find funny, and I think that's just because I've gotten older, not because it's not funny. It's just I'm no longer part of the target audience.
Sure.
So a lot of the high school scenes, the opening scene with the teacher, I used to think that was hilarious. Now it's just there. Right. A lot of the stuff with his friends, it doesn't hit like it used to. I don't think that there's anything like absolutely hilarious in this movie.
Right.
So the humor for me just doesn't resonate. Not to say that it doesn't hold up, not to say that it's not funny. It just doesn't resonate with me at this current time in my life.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, the high school stuff, I can definitely understand that, especially the two friends. Clark Duke, I remember thinking was really funny when the movie came out.
Same.
And then I think, I haven't seen Clark Duke. I actually looked him up while I was watching this because I was like, did he just disappear? But he's still doing stuff. He actually wrote and directed a movie called Arkansas that I watched the trailer for that actually looked pretty decent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he's doing pretty well, but like his character in this is basically the exact same character he plays in Hot Tub Time Machine. And so to me, it felt like once you had seen a couple of his movies, his shtick, you kind of understood it. And so I think that's one thing that didn't quite age well with me is like, I don't find Clark Duke as funny anymore in this movie. I think Evan Peters does a pretty decent job as Todd.
Yeah, Evan Peters is pretty good.
Yeah, especially since he's like the fifth wheel. Like Clark Duke ends up making out with that one girl, and Aaron Johnson's character ends up making out with Katie, and Todd's just sitting there reading comic books.
Yeah,
but the stuff that actually still works for me is all the stuff with Big Daddy and Hit Girl. Hit Girl. So I've always been one of those people that I feel like it's an easy / lazy joke to make either a very young actor or a very old actor curse. Like that's kind of a go-to thing. Like you see a grandma and she says the F word and people think it's hilarious, and I don't really know why. And it's kind of the same with this. Like Hit Girl obviously has a foul mouth in the movie and it's supposed to be funny and whatever. But the stuff that makes me laugh is just the dynamic between Big Daddy and Hit Girl, where like when we first see them, he's about to shoot her in the chest because he wants her to know what it feels like to be hit with a bullet with wearing a bulletproof vest. And he's like, it's going to knock you off your feet, honey. And then he does. And she just falls back like that. That part kind of makes me laugh. That's the stuff that is just weirdly dark and funny to me. But
I agree with that. They steal the show, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure.
Nicolas Cage is pretty funny in this movie. I love the way he talks.
Yes.
When he's not big, I mean, he kind of talks the same, but when he's not Big Daddy, I forget his actual name.
I can't remember it either.
But
Stewart or something,
something like that. But when he's talking to his daughter, he just says, "Oh, child," like it's just like who talks like that? Like only Nicolas Cage can get away with talking like that. It'd be hilarious.
But then at the same time, I love when he is Big Daddy because he puts on the Adam West Batman voice.
Yeah.
Like he nails that perfectly. He's like, what did he say? He goes, I rerouted your IP address. You were too easy to find. It's just like, it's like he nails it. It's perfect. So yeah, I agree. Even though the movie is called Kick-Ass, this movie is Big Daddy and Hit Girl's movie, really. I mean, it's they 100% steal the show. And honestly, Aaron Johnson's the main character. He is not very good at what he does. And if it wasn't for Big Daddy and Hit Girl, he would have died in Razul's apartment or whatever that guy's name was. So yeah, but I mean, that's part of so the whole idea behind this movie is, okay, so Aaron Johnson's character, Dave, basically puts out the question, why has nobody ever tried to be a superhero? And his friends make, a pretty good point. They're like, because he would get beat up. He would die. And as soon as Dave decides to put on the costume and be Kick-Ass, he almost gets killed. He gets stabbed in the stomach with a knife. But then, of course, he ends up kind of getting not a superpower, but he ends up getting a little bit of a power by
not
being able to feel pain.
Right.
Or not being able to feel anything, I guess.
Because he
gets
nerve
like
damage.
some nerve damage. Mm-hmm. And so like his friends are like punching him and hitting him in the head. And they're like, did you feel that? And he's like, no. So now he can take a beating, basically.
Yeah.
But that's like the only thing he can really do. He's not good. He's not trained or anything. No. But he can just take a beating. But Big Daddy and Hit Girl say he's got some potential. They see potential in him.
Yeah, because I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that he's fearless, because he has some reservations.
Sure.
But he's enthusiastic about, being a superhero, but he also genuinely wants to help people.
Right.
Which, I can see how they would see the potential in that. So
I do like when he goes, he's in the hospital for a while, and when he comes back out, he decides to dress up again, and he ends up saving this guy's life because there's like 3 guys beating on this guy. Mm-hmm. And so he gets in the middle of it. That's how he ends up kind of becoming famous, because people record him and it goes viral. But I like what he says, they're like, you're willing to die for this guy you don't know? And he's like, this is a great podcast since I can't remember anything. The line he says is something to the effect of like, it's better than 3 guys beating on, yeah, I'm willing to die for this guy. So I like that moment. He's trying to actually help somebody. But then, of course, the fame, I think, kind of goes to his head a little bit. It's also just super weird to me that it's like he's become this quote unquote superhero who has a MySpace page, or like you email him through his website to like with help requests, and he goes out and does them. It's kind of strange.
Right. What did you think about the costume?
So the costumes, Kick-Ass's costume is straight out of the comic book. Yeah. I mean, it was a perfect adaptation. Yeah. Big Daddy's is better in the movie, I think, than in the comic book again.
Yeah.
It looks a little bit more armored and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like how they almost give him bad ears.
Almost.
With that helmet. Yeah. And then Hit Girls again looks the exact same. I don't remember. I think Red Mist looks different than it did in the comic. I can't remember exactly. But I think the costumes are pretty decent. I like how they look somewhat homemade, but yet somewhat kind of professional, especially like Red Mist and Big Daddy's.
See, that's the thing. I was not crazy about Big Daddy's costume. It looked a bit too cartoony.
Okay.
And I can't quite put my finger on why that is, but I thought that Hit Girl and Kick-Ass looked way better.
Yeah.
Red Mist, I didn't really like his costume, but he did. That's in his character. He was supposed to be kind of a little flamboyant. So
yes,
I could forgive that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wasn't big on Big Daddy's costume.
Is it the mask, or is it the rest of it that you dislike?
It's all of it. It's
all of it. Okay.
I don't particularly hate it, but I don't like it either. It's just like I don't know. It looked a little too homemade for my taste.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, even though the other costumes looked homemade, I don't know, they had some character to them. It might be the whole Batman thing that's just throwing me off.
The black and yellow maybe just doesn't quite, because Hit Girl has the purple, and it's a little bit more colorful, a little bit more I don't know, but yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah.
The mask at times for Big Daddy almost looks like it's too big on him.
Yes, it does.
Like sometimes it almost looks like it's kind of going over his eyes rather than where it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like it worked for me. I guess I don't have any real big issues with it.
Yeah. I did like the Mistmobile.
yeah,
that was pretty cool.
I love too. And again, they're teenagers. It's like it's you watch it. It made me laugh back then. I mean, when it came out in 2010, I was 26, probably 27. But so I wasn't exactly a teenager, but it makes me laugh when they're riding in the Mistmobile and they're supposed to be like patrolling for crime or whatever, and they're just like dancing.
That was one of my favorite parts in the movie, even though it's very brief. I definitely thought that was really funny. It was a genuinely funny moment.
Yes, I agree.
I know we kind of going out of order, but going back towards the beginning when what's his girlfriend's name?
Katie.
Katie, yeah. When he's going to confront Razul for Katie, I felt like that scene was out of place. Like it I don't think that it fit with the rest of the movie as far as story.
Right.
It felt kind of pointless.
Yeah, it was. I feel like they needed Kick-Ass and Big Daddy and Hit-Girl to meet.
Mm-hmm.
And so they needed them to cross paths somehow. But it was like Kick-Ass was not doing anything to really get on Frank D'Amico's radar yet. And so they needed somehow for him to get on Frank D'Amico's radar. So they made, because the thing that feels off to me is I don't like Katie's character doesn't feel like she would be associating with Razul in that crowd.
Yeah.
That's what felt really weirdly out of place to me.
Right.
And so him going there, yeah, like it just, I don't know. It's just, because then we find out Razul was like a drug dealer for Frank D'Amico, which is why Big Daddy and Hit Girl show up and take him out, because they're trying to take out all of Frank D'Amico's people. But yeah, it was just, I agree. It's that scene doesn't feel quite true to the story. And it was needed to get them on. But I feel like they could have shown up, they could have been patrolling the streets and run across Kick-Ass or something some other way.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know.
I don't think that it was necessary to involve Katie or make Katie the connecting factor between him and Razul. I kind of would have liked it better if it was random.
Yeah,
because if he's just out, patrolling and looking for people to beat up.
Right. Or like sees a drug deal go down and follows the guy back to the headquarters and he's like, stop dealing drugs in my town or something. Something like that would have felt more real than him Katie
specifically looking for him just to impress a girl. Like I didn't like that.
Yeah, I agree. Because also, I mean, Katie, she volunteers at like, I forget what she calls it, but like some shelter type thing, it's just, it just didn't seem like she would be involved with the drug dealer group of people. It just seemed weird. She seemed like more of a innocent type of character, I guess.
Yeah. And speaking of Katie, I don't really think that he, like, when they finally got together, it didn't feel like he earned it. It felt like they got together just because that's what they were supposed to do. Right.
I agree. I think there should have been, because when he comes and into her house and takes off his mask and basically says, I am Kick-Ass and I'm not gay, by the way. Because for a while he was lying to her.
He's gay.
He was pretending he was gay so that he could be friends with her, and even though he had a crush on her. There should have been more time where she was upset with him. She basically instantly forgives him and tells him to stay. And that didn't feel very true either. That she should have been mad at him for a while.
Also, I don't think you can do that plot line in a movie today.
Pretending to be gay?
Yeah. And then, having someone instantly forgive you. I don't think that you definitely could not get away with that today.
Probably not. I don't think you could either. What do you think about Aaron Johnson as Dave / Kick-Ass?
Oh, I thought he was good. I thought he was really good. This was the first thing that I had seen him in.
Same here.
But yeah, I thought he did a very good job. So well that whenever I see him in anything else, I always kind of compare it to this.
Yeah.
So it's when he does other roles like Tenet, sometimes it's hard for me to take him seriously.
Oh yeah.
Because I always think of him as Kick-Ass.
Right. Yeah. He this was the first thing I saw him in too. He's a British actor, and I think he's amazing in this. He's like, I mean, I think he's supposed to be this world's kind of Peter Parker, because he just nails kind of that Peter Parker. He even does like the Tobey Maguire kind of voice almost. You know, he's kind of got like the yeah, I'm kick-ass. Like it's just kind of like,
very awkward.
Yeah. And again, one of my favorite moments, and I'm not going to get the line right because I can't remember it, but he's looking in the mirror and he says something, he's like, hey, what are you doing? I'm just hanging out. No, I'm not. And then he pulls his batons out and he's like, ah! That part always makes me laugh. Just the way he's like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, I thought he did a solid job. He definitely nailed the awkwardness and it felt genuine.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's kind of hard for me to take him seriously in
anything else.
Not saying that he's a bad actor. I think he's decent. But it's just it takes me out of it a little bit.
Yeah. He was Quicksilver in Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Yes, and I thought he was a pretty good Quicksilver.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. He most recently was in Bullet Train, which I still have not seen. But I guess he
was really good in Bullet Train.
Yeah, he looked like he'd be pretty good in Bullet Train from the trailer. I think he does a great job in this movie.
Yeah.
Like you said, I think he nails the awkwardness perfectly, and when he's fighting, like I said, he's not trained, so he's just swinging those batons around and getting beat up, but he's trying.
Yeah.
Christopher Mintz-Plasse as Red Mist / Chris D'Amico. Also a good. He was known as McLovin probably the year before or 2 years before this.
I think it was 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he does a good job as being another kind of awkward character. He's like the son of a crime boss. He knows his father's a crime boss, even though his dad kind of tries to hide the business from him a little bit in the beginning. And he wants to be a part of it, but he's just kind of a nerd and doesn't really know what he's doing. So he finally figures out there's a way to help out. And because for a while, so a lot of the stuff that happens in the movie, Big Daddy is responsible for, but Kick-Ass is getting blamed for it because Big Daddy and Hit-Girl are a lot better at not leaving, behind a trace or not being in the public eye.
Right.
And so nobody knows that Big Daddy and Hit-Girl exist really. And so when things keep happening, they blame it on a superhero. And the only superhero they really know is Kick-Ass, if you can call him a superhero.
Right.
And so he keeps getting blamed for the stuff that Big Daddy's doing. So then that's Frank D'Amico, wants Kick-Ass dead. And so that's when Chris steps up and he's like, I know a way we can get him. Here's what I need. And I like how Frank is like, are you kidding me with this? Because it's essentially the Mistmobile and the Red Mist outfit.
Right. I mean, but it works.
It did work. I mean, and Kick-Ass trusted him right away. Because, of course, this is where Chris was actually pretty smart. Chris was, flattered him. He's like, you're my hero, man. I just want to be your sidekick. And he's like, you want to be my sidekick? So then, of course, Kick-Ass is just immediately like, all right, this guy's cool.
Frank D'Amico, Mark Strong.
Yeah.
I really like him in this movie.
I do too.
I love Mark Strong as a villain.
Yes.
I really wanted him for Lex Luthor.
Oh yeah, that would have been good
for a long time.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he would have fit in Zack Snyder's universe.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
I was gonna say he was perfect, even though he was wasted in Green Lantern. He was he was an amazing Sinestro.
Yeah, he was. I agree.
I really wish we could have seen more of that. But yeah, he's really great in this movie too. He does great American accent, and he's funny. He's got some funny moments.
I think this was the first thing that I had seen him in. I may have seen him in something else before, but I think this is the first thing I saw him in. I didn't know that he wasn't American.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There's there's actually quite a few British actors in this movie, I guess, because of Matthew Vaughn is British. Yeah. This was either this or there was a Guy Ritchie movie called Revolver that he's also in, and I don't know which one I saw first, but that either this movie or Revolver was the first time I'd ever seen him. But I don't think because he's such a different character in Revolver that if I had seen that first, I don't think I recognized him in this movie.
Oh, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up. The first thing I saw him in was Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then I saw this. but hadn't realized that it was him in this
Right.
movie because he's so different.
Right.
So
And he does the flawless American accent.
yeah, flawless American accent. So I hadn't put two and two together. So yeah, that was the first thing I saw, man. Because when I went back and rewatched it, I was like, oh, that's Mark Strong. So
Right. I got the movie playing right now, and he's currently pretending to be gay with Katie, but they're sitting in Atomic Comics, and I wish that was a real place. Even though I do feel like a cafe / comic shop is just asking for trouble, asking for spilt coffee on comic books and stuff.
Yeah.
But it still seems like kind of a cool place to hang out and look at comics and buy comics and then have a cup of coffee or something.
I mean, well, Barnes and Noble is kind of like that with the Starbucks inside of there, and they got like a little news stand area with comic books.
It's a good point.
And not quite as elaborate as Atomic Comics, but you know, it's the same general idea. So
Right. There is a bar / restaurant in Atlanta that also sells comics. I forget what it's called, but I went and met a friend down there one time, bought a couple. They don't have like a huge selection of comics, but they'll have like the new releases on the wall or something, and you can buy a beer and buy a comic and enjoy.
I need to go.
I think I need to go back. Chloe Grace Moretz as Hit-Girl.
Very good.
Very good. Honestly, like you said, steals the show, really.
Mm-hmm.
She is the best part of the movie, I think.
Yeah. Her and Big Daddy, despite his costume,
yeah,
they are excellent in this movie.
Yeah, I agree. And she's all the action scenes she's in, you know, it's believable. I buy it that she could beat up all these guys, you know, and she's funny, and you know her after once Big Daddy dies, she decides to continue the mission. Like it's just. I think it works really well. I think she steals the show for sure.
What do you think about their Big Daddy's backstory?
I like it. Like I said, I think they changed it from the comic book for the movie, and I think it really works in the movie. I like that he used to be a cop. He got something happened. I forget what exactly it was. I also like that the backstory is told in kind of comic book panels, and it's drawn by John Romita Jr., which I thought was pretty great. But I like his whole story, and I like the whole revenge plot against Frank D'Amico. One of my favorite moments with Nicolas Cage, because it's very Nicolas Cage, is his old partner shows up, and he's like, "You owe that girl a childhood," because you know he thinks he's Mindy, I think is her name.
Yes,
he's robbing Mindy of a childhood. He's making her into an assassin at 11 years old or whatever she is.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "You owe that girl a childhood." And he says, "You know who owes her?" Something like that. And he goes, "Frank D'Amico." Like, it's just very Nicolas Cage at the top of his lungs, type of thing. Yeah, exactly. I love that part.
Yeah, Nicolas Cage is known for like just turning it on at a dime.
Going to 11, man. Yeah, just yeah, exactly. Which is what I love about him, and I understand why some people, aka you, may not quite appreciate the Cage, but that's all right.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't dislike Nicolas Cage. It's just that, and it's not him. It's just the movies that he's in. I know. It's not my cup of tea.
And lately, it seems like most of the movies he puts out are just garbage. And I haven't. You can just tell from like the poster that it's just not going to be good. But every now and again, he'll do something really. So he'll make like 8 really terrible movies, and then he'll make like 1 really great movie, and then he'll go back and make 8 terrible. So I mean, I don't watch all of his movies. I know there's some that would just be terrible, or maybe not even terrible, but just like bland.
Mm-hmm.
But every now and again, he'll do something great, and this is one of the ones I think he did pretty great in.
I agree. I like how he when he turns into Big Daddy, he like puts the
he extends his mustache.
Goatee. Yeah.
Yeah. Got like the
handlebar
mustache.
I'm not gonna shave, but people are still gonna recognize me if I have just a mustache. Maybe I'll put on more facial hair. That'll help disguise me.
This was the first superhero movie I think ever that actually showed a character putting on the black eye makeup and like kind of getting like it shows him putting on the mustache, applying the black eye makeup, putting on. It's like in every other superhero movie, mostly Batman movies, I guess, but in every other superhero movie where they have the black eye makeup on, it's always just kind of ignored, Even to the point,
he's supposed to maintain the illusion,
right? Exactly. Even to the point where in Batman Returns, he pulls off the mask and there's nothing there. Same thing with Batman vs Superman in the in the nightmare scene when Superman rips off Batman's mask. He's got the black eye makeup, but then as soon as that mask comes off, he doesn't. So this was one of the first movies where they kind of acknowledged that, and then of course now with the Batman, he's got it on his eyes when he takes his mask off and everything.
Mm-hmm. It was long,
and I think it even shows him applying it in that movie too when he's on the train and he's like stalking the Halloween guys that are. I think it shows him in like the train bathroom, like applying it with his fingers onto his eyes.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking like it would, in real life, it would take superheroes would get to the party so much later because they have to sit there and apply the black eye makeup and put on the fake mustache before they get dressed and then get out, and they would be late to the crime basically.
By the time they get done, the crime will be over. So,
right.
Yeah. This is unrelated to anything, but I really liked Frank D'Amico's car in this movie.
Oh, really? I don't know if I remember it.
It's a Rolls Royce.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is it the one where like the back door or like murder doors? So like the back doors open differently?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, got the suicide doors on.
Suicide doors. That's what they're called, not murder doors. I knew it had something to do with death. Yeah. Did you ever watch Entourage?
No.
In the opening credit sequence of Entourage, I think at the very end, the camera is like above the car, and they all get out of the car, and I think the car they're in have those suicide doors. And I always thought that was kind of cool.
I've always wanted to watch Entourage because I heard it was a pretty good show, and also had a pretty decent movie. So I always wanted to watch it, but never got around to it.
I was a big fan of it. I think it's one of those shows that I think stayed on the air maybe a little too long.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think they kind of ran out of things to do. So like in the last couple of seasons, I can't remember if it was the last season or the season before the last season, but like he ends up like the main character ends up getting like addicted to drugs and stuff like that. And it just was kind of like, we're getting a little too crazy now, or not crazy, but it felt like it needed to wrap up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I love that show. I think it's a great show. It's a lot of fun. And what's his name? Jeremy Piven. Golly. Jeremy Piven, as he plays the
agent?
The agent of the actor. So it's Adrian Grenier plays Vincent Chase, who's like the movie star.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody else is his friends. And Jeremy Piven is his agent. And his agent, he's the best thing about the show. He's so funny. I think he won like an Emmy every year that show was on because he stole the show.
Isn't that show based on something like isn't it like a loosely true story or something?
It was. I don't know if it was. It's inspired, I believe, by Mark Wahlberg. And Mark Wahlberg was a producer on the show.
That's it. Yeah.
And I'm guessing Mark Wahlberg always had an entourage, so they kind of made. I don't think it's necessarily like a true story, but I think it was just inspired by Mark Wahlberg and his entourage and stuff.
Okay.
Because Mark Wahlberg ends up being on the show occasionally.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's definitely worth watching. I mean, you got HBO Max, it's on there, and they're only 30-minute episodes, So.
Oh yeah, I'll check it out.
Big Daddy is on screen now, and I can kind of tell what you're talking about. Like, his mask has kind of that rubber, kind of high quality look like Batman masks kind of do, but then like right under it, it's almost like he's got like a cheap looking kind of
like an Under Armour shirt
type thing, and then the armor panels are on top of that.
Yeah,
I wish, maybe it had like a little bit more quality look on like the neck part area. It would have looked a little better, but again, I guess it's supposed to kind of look homemade, so I don't know. It's okay. I don't hate it, but
Yeah, it to me it lacks charm. The other costumes have a bit of charm to them.
Yeah.
Even Red Mist, as ridiculous and flamboyant as it is,
Right.
The Big Daddy costume just it lacks something.
Yeah. Xander Berkeley plays the cop. I can't remember his name now, but the cop that Frank D'Amico pays. Xander Berkeley was a voice in the last movie we just did, Superman, Batman, Public Enemies. Played Captain Atom.
Oh, yeah.
He's also Todd from Terminator 2, John Connor's stepdad. Anyway.
Yeah.
One thing I really want to talk about with this movie is the music. So I don't think this movie has a traditional score. I looked it up. I don't believe there is an actual composer for the film. There is, I noticed in the credits, there's a track that was composed by Danny Elfman called like The Walk to Razoul's or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there are two moments in the movie, and I noticed it in the theater, where they used music from another movie. So when you're watching the footage of Big Daddy killing everybody in the warehouse,
mm-hmm.
that music is from the movie 28 Days Later, which is a score by John Murphy. And then when Hit-Girl is killing everybody while Big Daddy is like getting burned alive,
mm-hmm.
that music is from the movie Sunshine, which is also a John Murphy score. Both very good pieces of music. But I remember thinking it was weird. I always think it's weird when a movie uses another score from another movie.
But it worked. They ran out of money.
maybe they did.
Like, I mean, that's the only way I can explain that. Is they didn't have enough money in the budget to create an original score.
Yeah, I guess maybe you're right. And then, of course, they use a lot of modern music and stuff throughout the movie.
Yeah.
One of the songs, which I remember being really surprised when I looked it up, it's kind of I think it plays in the beginning and the end of the movie. It's kind of got like a trumpet or a saxophone type thing playing.
Mm-hmm.
That's Prodigy, which if you remember them, they were like a techno band from the 90s or early 2000s or something.
I'm not familiar.
Okay, well then never mind. But not what they sound like at all. So anyway, yeah. So it's just I guess maybe they did run out of money, or maybe they used those songs for like a temp score, and then realized, you know what, we're never gonna. These songs are just perfect. We'll just use these songs. I don't know. I always found that interesting that they did that.
Yeah. The third act is I thought that like the first half of the third act was really good. When they after Big Daddy dies at the warehouse, which is a really good scene in itself.
Yeah.
But after that, they Hit-Girl, they go to Frank D'Amico's penthouse and just start, whooping ass. I thought that was awesome, but it did get ridiculous.
Yes.
With the rocket launcher and like, I was like, okay, now you're doing too much.
I do love though when Frank D'Amico's like bodyguard walks back into the room, like it's Frank D'Amico and Chris, and they're both like sitting there like, what's going on? And the bodyguard walks back in and he's like, everything's fine. No problem. And he grabs the bazooka and he's like, no problems. But I did think, like, I was like, you're gonna shoot a bazooka in a building at the top of a skyscraper, and then of course it gets even more ridiculous when Kick-Ass shows up on a jetpack with Gatling guns on it. But then of course I loved how we don't see that obviously in the beginning, but that was purchased by Big Daddy and Hit-Girl, and when they're looking at it in the box, and she's like, oh, it looks even cooler in person than it does on the website. And he goes, oh, child, that's because in the website, it didn't have Gatling guns on it. It's just great. Yeah, it does get quite ridiculous. I mean, it becomes a comic book, towards the end of the movie, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is funny, but it's just, it does. It works. I mean, I think it works. It's this movie, I think, is meant to be kind of ridiculous, and they just go over the top at the end. But again, I think it works really well. And I do love like Hit-Girl just mowing down everybody.
Yeah.
And them being terrified of her. Like there's like 3 or 4 grown men who are like, I'm not going out there. Like,
yeah.
I think it's just fantastic.
Girl, I love Hit-Girl in this movie.
Yeah. Oh, wait, we got to talk about one more thing because it's Nicolas Cage. And again, such a weird choice, but I love it. Is when he's
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. They've started the fire. He's like, he's starting to burn. Hit-Girl shows up. He knows she's out there and he's talking to her. And I forget the first line he says, but the second one he says, switch to kryptonite. And he goes, switch to kryptonite.
Man, all I could think of was Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance.
I know, dude.
He's knocking at the door.
He's knocking at the door. So great.
Yeah, I definitely thought of you when he did that.
Yeah, I love it. That was like my favorite Nicolas Cage moments. When he just kind of goes, when the director basically says, you know what, Nick, just do whatever you want. The first time I saw it, I was like, why is he saying it like that? And then I realized I was like, oh, I guess he is burning alive. So I guess it's supposed to be like, he's kind of crying out in pain, but it just has such like it almost has like a musical quality to the way he does it.
Right.
You know?
He has a certain cadence to how he says it.
Yeah. I couldn't end the podcast before talking about that scene at least. So, well, I guess I don't have much else, so it's be a short episode, but we can go ahead and get into the ratings. Yeah. What would you rate Kick-Ass, Stu?
I still think it's a good movie. Not one that has very much rewatchability. I hadn't watched this movie in quite some time, and I kind of understand why.
Sure.
A lot of the humor doesn't do it for me, but like we said before, Hit-Girl and Big Daddy almost kind of carry this movie.
Mm-hmm. I think they do carry the movie.
Yeah, because it's pretty much their storyline, but it's through Dave's perspective,
point of view. Yeah.
But that being said, it's still enjoyable.
I also want to point out that Dave decides to quit being a superhero when he gets a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he does. Red Mist convinces him to go back out for one more thing, but she's like, I don't want you getting hurt, and he's like, okay. He's like, I won't help people anymore. Which is, again, I guess a very teenage boy thing to do. I suppose.
Yeah, very. Teenagers are very frugal. Or not
fickle.
Fickle. That's what I was meant. Yeah, fickle. They're very fickle. But yeah, I think. What am I gonna give this? 3.5. 3.5 stars.
3.5. That's what I felt you were going with. For me, I think it still works pretty well. I agree about the rewatchability. I had not watched this movie. I probably rewatched it before Kick-Ass 2 came out. Mm-hmm. But I probably have not seen it since then. And so I enjoyed watching it this time around, but I think it's because I had not seen it in a while. Mm-hmm. I don't think if I were to sit down and like rewatch it next week, would I enjoy it as much? Probably not. So I think I'm going to go a little bit higher than you. I think I'm going to go 4 stars. I got nothing. Big Daddy belts. Just because I think it still works for me mostly, and I still really enjoy the Nicolas Cage stuff. And I think Aaron Johnson does a fantastic job as well. So, yeah, I like it. I think it's a pretty decent movie, pretty solid.
Same.
Well, we'd love to know what you think about Kick-Ass. You can always leave us a comment on cinemaheroes.com. You can also reach us on Instagram, Twitter, both handles at cinemaheroes. Facebook.com/SM and SM Podcast is where you can find our Facebook page, although, to be honest with you, I never check it, so don't leave a comment there. And if you're watching this on YouTube, of course, you can always leave a comment down below. If you are watching this on YouTube, give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And if you like us, tell your friends about us. Maybe we can grow the channel a little bit. So we'd love to hear from you. However you want to reach out to us, though. I think that about wraps it up for this episode. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm Jay Stu.
As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing.